Awesome. So again, my name is Kerry-Ann Joseph-McLean. Thank you so much, Kona, for welcoming everyone to the call on Health Talk. And today we are speaking on sleep disorders, and different types of symptoms and conditions that may trigger, and what we can do to sort of alleviate or improve it. So I hope you're enjoying your day. And every day we get up, we're able to breathe and to give thanks is a day to rejoice. So no matter whatever challenge you may have in this journey we call life, everyone have different seasons that we go through challenges in our health, or those around us who have challenges with their health. And so as you're here to empower yourself and gaining more knowledge, and I'm sure that you may have heard information from time to time. So I like to sort of share things with the individuals that I'm passionate about. And through all the different feedback we've gotten and surveys, people have expressed what certain topics they'd like to discuss. So I want to ask through a show of hands, or maybe in the chat, how many of you may have suffered or know someone who suffered from some bouts of insomnia or sleep deprivation or sleep disturbance? So in the chat, if you can put me, or you maybe actually put number one so I can know it to keep it consistent. If you're able to put in there so you can know that, I see there someone here has put that information there. So they have, so don't feel shy. Awesome. So, okay. So the majority have suffered from that, and I'm not gonna be any different. I have suffered from that from time to time. And so as I share this with you, be encouraged that, of course, that, we may have disturbances in our lives that may cause these things, but knowing that what you can do as a coping mechanism can sort of help you to sort of be aware of like the things that we need to do, or maybe be mindful of that we're not really paying attention to. And the reason why I share that, I'm going to actually bring my mother into this conversation. During the time when she fell ill, where she was left bedridden, I made the conscious decision to stay home and to care for her as a caregiver, foregoing my career for a hiatus for about 2 years. And then in those 2 years, I had broken sleep. So for me, in a day, I may have 3 to 4, maybe 5 hours sleep, but broken sleep, because caring for her, someone who's bedridden, with the PSWs, the personal service workers helping me throughout the day, it's sort of like a 24-hour care. But for me, she was never a burden. But for me, I knew that there's something that doing that would have sort of disrupted my sleep pattern. Of course, being on high alert because you're subconsciously sort of listening for sounds or things that she may be calling out for help, even though she's bedridden. So that was just one of my periods of time. And then you were sort of in automatic mode, or in sort of like survival mode, so to speak. And I'm sure many of you have done that. Maybe if you had a child, your new mother or grandparents, you could be stressful in different things. So we've all been impacted in different ways, right? So just know that you're not alone, and to know that that actually, as we share tips here, and I'm sure you may have tips too, but as you share tips, you're able to sort of feel comforted to know that, okay, there's something I can sort of do about it, right? So I'm just going to share this with you, my screen. And please feel free, as you're listening to this information, to actually, if you have questions, place them in the comments. So after we finish this discussion, or I share this information with you, that I can sort of try to answer to the best of my ability. Now, just to let you be aware, I am not a doctor. I'm not a health practitioner. But what I am, and my husband, we are health enthusiasts. So we want to sort of gather information from credible sites. We usually go to PubMed, which is a public medical library. We go to Harvard, to Yale website. We find different documented information, studies. And so I sort of gather everything together that sort of like help to put everything in sort of like one area. And so sleep disorder, sleep disturbance, insomnia, it can be impacted by many different conditions or illnesses. And so I'm sort of giving like a high level, and I actually want to continue this conversation in another session. So I'm covering some highlight areas, but I want to have another health talk sort of deep diving into specific conditions that can trigger, can trigger sort of like your insomnia or sleep disorder. So let me just share this with you. Yeah. Oh, perfect. Awesome. So, so those of you who are here, um, so we know that insomnia or sleep deprivation can trigger from many things. So, for example, stress. If you're highly stressed, your body's not at ease. And so when your body's not at ease, that's where dis-ease come. So if your body's not easily adjusting to what you're experiencing externally or internally, that's where it's a perfect storm for dis-ease. And so when I said dis-ease, disease, is dis-ease that your body's not at ease. So you may find yourself feeling overly tired, or you think, okay, my girl, I say, girl, I'm not slept. I don't know what's the reason. It could be the weather, it could be different things that happen. You find you're tossing and turning, and you can't really pinpoint what you're going through because at times we tend to suppress what we're feeling. So you're taught to be like the pillar of strength, and at times you feel that you don't feel comfortable expressing how you feeling because others may feel others may think that you're complaining. And so when you voice what you're feeling, that's the first step to recovery in a sense because you're sharing your concerns with people that you know, like, and trust. What is normal sleep pattern and what is insomnia? So insomnia basically is a common clinical manifestation in some patients that with depression. And sometimes you may think, okay, I'm not depressed. I don't feel depressed. Well, how do you know you're not depressed? Because you don't know the actual indicators that may cause you to be depressed until you speak to your family doctor, or so even if you went into a walk-in clinic, so to speak, or go to a sleep clinic to sort of determine what's happening with you. So insomnia is not only a depression symptom, but also an independent risk factor for reoccurrence. So sometimes you sleep well, sometimes you sleep okay, and sometimes you find that there's patterns, it cycles, right? So if you see below, there's little links happening on different screens. It's basically where I got some of the information from. And so you can actually, at your own discretion, you sort of go to your those links and you find information on detailed information on those topics. So we know that women need more sleep than men. This is actually a study that was done. So there's research to show that although women spend more time in deep sleep than men, they experience more fragmented or worse quality of sleep. So we sort of have the stress hormone, like we all have more stress at some levels, but we sort of exude more symptoms. For example, restless leg syndrome is one that can actually be attached to or linked to insomnia. Poor poor sleep patterns can be directly linked back to chronic pain. So if your body is not relaxed and is at ease, like especially if you go to sleep and you may find your body's trying to relax and you may have, for example, like neuropathy, tingling in the feet or hands, or you find your legs are having that restless sort of syndrome, like the restlessness in your legs. It actually is a real thing. People are going through men don't go through menstruation cycle, women do. So if you have pain during your menstrual cycle, it wakes you up. So it's not a deep REM sleep. Pregnant women, of course, not sleeping quite well, you find that you're having different symptoms related to pregnancy can cause disturbance in your sleep. So the stress is something that can trigger it. So the body reacts differently for everyone, depending on what you're experiencing in your stress-induced state. So most people are all highly stressed and they keep that level of stress for longer periods of time than your body can actually adapt to. So it manifests in a different way. So sleep issues can happen where you find, okay, for example, if you're working a night schedule versus the day schedule, or your pattern for your schedule for your work may alternate, for example, like nurses. So nurses may have different or policemen or policewomen, people who are in the service field where they're servicing the population, their schedules might shift 1 week to 1 month to the next. So of course that sleep pattern is not consistent. So there may be different ways that stress can trigger. Now there's a difference now with insomnia and sleep apnea. So sleep apnea sort of happens when you're sleeping and you sort of you hold your breath. Like I stop breathing for a few seconds. But whilst you're sleeping, you don't realize that's the case, right? So insomnia we know is difficulty in falling asleep or maintaining your sleep. It can cause by anxiety, nicotine, withdrawal, or you have too much nicotine in your system, caffeine, excessive alcohol, sometimes drug abuse, over-the-counter drug medication. Also avoiding distractions during sleep. So for example, I'll explain that further. If your phone, blue light, your computer, things in your room that kind of triggers it, which you really don't realize is doing that. Eating just before you go to bed or having highly caffeinated beverages. Even sugar can disturb your sleep pattern as well. If you're having something with sugar just before you go to bed. So different conditions can happen when you're insomnia, but for sleep apnea, it basically is like a repetitiveness of brief disruptions in your airflow. And so if you have a partner with you while you're sleeping, they can sort of identify that. A perfect example, I have a cousin who served in the military and came back with sleep apnea over time, and he didn't know he had it. It was his girlfriend, now wife, who called me one day and asked, have you ever noticed that, when we're on vacations together as a family, that he stopped sleeping breathing while he's sleeping. Now he snores really, really loud. He can wake up the whole house, so to speak. That's how loud his snoring is. And so in a couple of times she noticed his breath. He would not breathe. So I said, have him check himself and having his doctor refer him to a sleep clinic so they can actually check to see if he has sleep apnea. Now, it is actually a choice. You can choose to get the sleep apnea machine or not. It's a choice. It's not a mandatory thing. But some people feel uncomfortable using the machine versus those who actually figure I'll use it just to help me with my breathing so that I don't stop breathing for longer periods of time while I'm sleeping. So the blocking of the airway can cause long-term impact. It could be from you're increasing your weight. It could be many things with your other types of chronic illnesses, but most of it can be alleviated through your lifestyle. So I would say to you, if you find that there are certain symptoms you can have with sleep apnea versus you think that you have insomnia, look at some of the things here. I'm actually going to go through a couple of them, not all, but a couple. So for example, you find that you can't concentrate. You have poor concentration. Your mood is low. Now, keep in mind that these two things can be other factors as well. For example, you could be low in vitamin D and you don't realize that you are. And most people who do their blood work, they do not ask to have their vitamin D level checked. And most women men of color, non-Caucasian, are mostly deficient in vitamin D3 because of lack of sun and because of the melanin in our skin. We don't get as much as we need because we're under artificial lights most of the time. So it could be other things like poor concentration. Could be if you're a woman, you could be going through premenopause. It could be baby brain. It could be many things. But if you put certain things in place and you sort of check the symptoms that you're feeling, it can actually narrow it down to what you suspect might be happening with you. So restless sleep is one, frequent heartburn, waking up in the morning with a dry mouth or throat, waking up with a headache. And of course, that also can be that you are dehydrated if you haven't had enough water from the day before, and your length of time sleeping can cause you to go into a dehydrated mode. So again, pay attention to that. Night sweats. Now, again, this could be symptoms of, let's say, menopause and premenopause, for example, with headaches and night sweats. So again, pay attention to the overall symptoms and signs. Insomnia could be linked to menopause or premenopause or other things, but again, in sleep apnea, these are one of the key factors or indicators. You find you get up and you wake up in the morning, or the time that you get up and you feel dizzy. Weight gains also one of them. You find throughout the day that you're excessively fatigued. During the day, you feel sluggish, you feel lethargic, you have no energy, and you find that you've become forgetful. Forgetfulness can be linked to lack of sleep as well. And there's actually such a thing which I learned, which is sort of deviating from sleep apnea. During the time when my aunt, who passed away many years ago, when we went to dementia related workshop, they actually do have it with the government here in Ontario. Just to learn more about her condition, which she didn't have dementia, but she had a form of disease called PICS. One of the things that I learned is that you can actually have temporary dementia. If you go for long periods of time without sleep, like say a week or two, and you find that you go into a store and you can't remember what you went for, or you find that your thoughts are sort of like not collective, there is such a thing as temporary dementia that once you get sufficient sleep, it reverses that. So that's also something to be mindful of. Lack of your sexual dysfunction is one of them, irritability, and of course you find that you're urinating too often in the night. And keep in mind, frequent urination could also be linked to kidney issues if you're diabetic, pre-diabetic, or you have conditions or symptoms with your kidneys. So what are the things that you can look out for? So you find you sleep badly at night, you're tossing, you're turning, you're waking up, you're sleeping, you feel tired, even though you're awake. You find that you're feeling fatigued, stressed during the day, that you can't manage your stress level. Some folks who have that type of those symptoms versus a person who gets sufficient sleep can handle stress more easily during the day versus someone who is having sort of fragmented sleep. So what we do when we find that we can't sleep, we feel that our sleep cycle is way off, we get stressed or we get depressed. And what do you do when you get depressed or you're stressed? You gravitate to unhealthy habits, like you gravitate to the chocolates and the breads, the carbs. So your body's craving comfort food. So you, instead of going for the healthy food or the healthy activities, you revert back to unhealthy habits, sort of like a coping mechanism. So also be mindful of that. So the habits that you implement in your day-to-day life can also be like a sort of like a counterproductive, sorry. So basically you're trying to get sleep, but then you're eating unhealthy, doing unhealthy things, not exercising, not consuming the right amount of water, not calming your body. And of course, it's a vicious cycle. So there's also a link to with sleep orders with ADHD. So I did have a health talk on autism and ADHD a couple of months ago, and it actually mentioned sleep disorders. So in sleep disorders associated with ADHD, insomnia is one of them. ADD as well is also another condition or symptoms that have related symptoms, I should say. You find that your sleep disordered breathing is one of them. Your rhythm of your sleep is impacted, and you can also develop narcolepsy. So that's the extreme case. So sleeping disorders are common individual with people with ADHD, also ADD. And you find that some things that might be impacted is some of the medications that's been prescribed may have a side effect of insomnia. So poor sleep can worsen your ADHD symptoms like inattention, hypersensitivity, impulsivity. And then you find that your daytime sleepiness is also a real thing as well, because you need according to what you're going through, you may need to have the ADHD medication to help you to balance your ADHD symptoms, but the side effect could be increased stress, anxiety, sleepiness throughout the day, and more. So you have highs and lows. Another thing too as well that you may find is behavioral intervention is something that can happen if you find that you can be mindful of your wellness with you or with your children or adult children, you can have a healthy conversation about how we as collectively as a community can help individuals who have ADHD without typecasting them as, oh, you have ADHD or ADD, is if we can find and educate ourselves on the things that you can help within your family, within your community, and to be more empathetic to how to help individuals without judging or lecturing. So behavioral intervention is really key, especially early in their stage of diagnosis. There are adults who have gone all their lives and not been diagnosed with ADHD or ADD, right? This is something that is a real thing. So having a consistent sleep schedule is one. creating a relaxing bedtime routine is one. Reducing the screen time is one. Because, as you're on the phone, you're going through your reels, you're going through your shorts, you're going through your movies online. It's like a habit loop. You keep going over and scrolling, and that can become counterproductive to your sleep. And so how do you improve it? Is to be mindful of what you're doing, paying attention of the negative impact you're having on your body, and taking daily steps. It won't be an overall immediate change, but at least you can find that you can take small steps to getting a consistent bedtime routine, especially if you have someone who's an adolescent or younger. They can start that systematic behavior over time. If you're an adult and you're able to do that for yourself and to create a community of a friend or two or three to help you with that, then that's all the better for you. Now, interventions like pharmacological interventions is one of them. Of course, be mindful that there are side effects to those things. So medication can be used to address with sleep disorders, but you're taking an ADHD or ADD medication along with that. So as you're putting more pharmaceuticals into your body, be mindful of some of the side effects and the impacts on your organs and your overall well-being, not just for the immediate alleviation of the symptoms. Another thing as well is cognitive behavioral therapy for insomniacs. There's a therapy that's actually called CBTI, and so that actually helps with your maladaptive thoughts, modifying them, and behavioral. Now, these are external therapies that can happen, but there are other ways that you can help to manage yourself. There's also a link with sleep problems and autistic children as well. Similar things to look at in the behavioral and adaptability. So I won't go too in depth with that, but there's such a thing called neurodivergent sleep. So ADHD and autism have similar symptoms and conditions, but some are not the same. So to speak. So insomnia is one, sleepwalking is another, sleep terrors. And you wake up, your heart is racing, and you're having these sleep terrors, and you sort of get up screaming or jumping out of your bed, and you find that it sort of frights you out of your sleep. Sleep apnea is one, sleep paralysis, we call it, is another thing as well. Narcolepsy is another condition of a neurodivergent sleep. Flattened melatonin curve. So you find that your levels of melatonin is sort of plateaued. And then, of course, the circadian rhythm, CRSD, which is sleep disorder, also is something that you would have to be assessed with. A restless leg syndrome is also known in individuals who have ADHD and autism, not just if you have a sleep disorder, insomnia, right? So these are things too that you get often occur, and so it impacts your overall well-being. You find also that the experience that individuals who have neurodivergent sleep, they have difficulties in adapting, but also there's unique ways that their brain process information. So we had a psychotherapist some time ago in that same conversation with people who have autism, ADHD, and she spoke on that. Her name is Helen Champagne, and she actually shared the overall, like an inside view of how someone deals with if they have ADHD, ADD, and autism, and how they process things. So you should actually go back to that health talk, and you can watch that in-depth conversation as well. And so these things manifest over time, and it also disrupts your quality of sleep. So one thing to consider, for example, is sensory sensitivities. So what we think that we take for granted might be something that can impact someone who has autism or ADHD, neurodegenerative issues or conditions. And so things like sound, light, touch can interfere with sleep. The environment itself, if you find it's too noisy and too distracting, can cause a negative effect. So you can have like a sanctuary for them in the sense of a calming environment, quiet space, dimmer lit lights. Some lights in the bedroom actually worsen your sleep, so find lights that can actually help. Also, earplugs is one, but also be careful because even though you're sleeping, you need to be alert as well. So if you're an adult and there's no one in the home, I would not recommend earplugs. But of course, if you have other ways to be able to counteract those, to make sure that your environment is friendly, sensory wise, sound machines and sensory toys to help. If there are kids, of course, as adults, there's other ways they can have with coping. So you can also provide for weighted blankets. So this can actually provide a deep pressure stimulation, which can actually help to calm those who have been diagnosed with neurodivergent disorder, and also help them with their sleeping pattern. Some of the routines and habits, for example, is consistent bedtime, winding down routines, avoiding screen time for bed, and limiting caffeine and alcohol. So we've found that through our studies and through what we've actually been able to get from credible sites, that if someone has, for example, coffee, tea, or even like sodas, the highly caffeinated drinks, like caffeine drinks for like things to keep you awake. You have that just before bedtime, a couple hours before bed, you're not sleeping. For someone who doesn't have those conditions, but of course, if you do, it's even worse, right? A blue light emitted from electronic devices interferes with your melatonin. So not just for those who have neurodivergent issues, but everyone. So anyone with a blue screen, be mindful of that. Even when you're on your computer, like for mine, I have a blue light. On my actual glasses, I have a blue light here, so that, for example, it will impact me so much. But they're actual glasses that have blue light, the filter blue light, so it doesn't impact your in personally in your health. So limiting caffeine and alcohol is another thing as well. But again, if you're going through the cycle of depression or stress or anxiety, what do you revert to? Not the healthy options, but the unhealthy, right? So another thing to be mindful of that you can actually utilize to help you with your overall well-being if you're going through situations, not just for ADHD or ADD or autism, but for everyone who's going through their cycles of insomnia, or in case you have sleep apnea. Managing your emotional state is so important. Now, there is a study that shows that your brain and your gut actually work with your overall well-being. And there's actually your intestines, your stomach. It's also known, your gastrointestinal is also called your emotional, is where all your emotions are stored. So if you are not managing your emotions or your stress, and you find that your stomach is not acting right, you find that it's not working the way it's supposed to, that means that your brain health, your gut health are not in alignment. So how do you manage your stress level and anxiety? Then there are ways you can do that through breathing exercises. You can actually do yoga. You can do meditative things that can help you in a way of listening to music that can calm yourself down. There's certain music that can trigger ADHD or neurodivergent. And also you can find ways to be able to be mindful of what you're doing, like breathing exercises to reduce your stress. So another thing too as well that you would also have to keep in mind is, if you know, for example, that you find you get in a relaxed state by listening to instrumental music versus, some sort of music that will sort of elevate your energy level, so to speak. Or if you find that you can actually go and take a relaxing bath or a shower just to calm yourself down when there's running water. You may do that before you go to sleep. Or if you find that you need to do some breathing exercises throughout the day, stop and take those type of moments for yourself as a self-care, a sort of package. So you sort of package in your mind or somewhere that you can keep notes of the things that help you to be able to de-stress, to sort of balance your emotion. But if you find that you can't do that on your own, seek professional help. A therapist. There's a stigma that happens that if I see a therapist that you're sort of mentally not quite right. That's not the case. Mental health is a real thing that if you find that your mental state, your physical state is not in alignment, and you find that you're not getting the right type of sleep, or you find that you're highly stressed or anxious, those things you should be mindful of. And speak to someone. If you don't have the ability to speak to a therapist, speak to someone who you know, like, and trust, who you can actually seek comfort with, that you can actually share your concerns with. So for another one too is for depression and sleep. is understanding the connection, right? So let's say, for example, you find that you feel sort of moody and you find that you're feeling tired throughout the day. And you're thinking, oh my gosh, I'm so busy, I'm so busy. Really, it actually could be depression. So if you take your sleeping habits or your problems seriously, you would be mindful of the things that you need to do, especially when you find that your cognitive thoughts is not working the way you expect it to, or you know it's supposed to be or meant to be. So I won't go through in depth. There's actually some studies done in hopkinsmedicine.org, and there's a link there that you can actually refer to. So there's also a link between, I mentioned before, with your gastrointestinal. There's a link between sleep and your GI condition. So for example, you might find that you have a flare-up with your acid reflux, right? So you may have intestinal conditions. You may not even be diagnosed with that. You may be diagnosed with something else. For example, Crohn's disease, or you could have fibromyalgia, or you could have conditions like, you may be diagnosed with other conditions that may cause you to have, reflux disease, inflammatory bowel disease, and so forth, liver disease. Even obesity can cause that as well. So there's also a link with COVID. So if you can actually, if you have a certain virus that your body has been attacked with, not just COVID, the COVID disease, or COVID symptoms, you can go back and reflect and think, how was my sleeping cycle if you have been diagnosed with COVID? Or if you actually have symptoms of it, because some people have, can be carriers of COVID, but not have the external displays of it, right? But those of you who have or know others, they will tell you, okay, I found that in certain circumstances, I wasn't sleeping sufficiently. I found my sleep was disrupted, or I found that my gut, something's wrong. It's not quite right. And so there are many things that can impact your sleep. Sleep deprivation is a real thing, right? So if you're not experiencing any of the things in the previous slide that I shared with you, sleep deprivation could be other key factors as well, right? So not getting enough sleep is not getting enough sleep. We can sort of say, well, I'll sleep tomorrow, but you can never quite catch up on your sleep. There's something called insufficient sleep or sleep debt, which always has a depletion because we're not sleeping enough. So the average sleep is between, 7 to 8 hours. Some people sleep between 4 to 6 hours consistently, which is negative. And so, of course, I can fall prey to that, especially when there are moments when I found in my past, even my present, I am not sleeping enough. So being mindful of that and being aware of what you can do and to avoid when it's time to sleep, right? So sleep deprivation can occur with an individual, as we know, who don't get enough sleep. But some of the reasons, like I mentioned before, could be sleep disorders, mental health conditions, poor sleep hygiene, stress. Even a busy schedule can also limit the time for your sleep. And so if you're writing your agenda of things that you need to do, then put that in there, even in your calendar. I actually have on my phone, on my alarm, I have a time that reminds me. So I have the name of my alarm is sleep reset, to remind me to stop doing what I'm doing, wind down and get some sleep. That's something I've been practicing lately. Another thing too as well is we spend so much time, especially when we're going to sleep or when we just wake up, thinking of the life problems or challenges. Most people are thinking about finances as they get up, about their bills when they get up, and when they go to sleep, when they do that. So you're going to sleep stressed, you're waking up stressed. That's another key factor as well to be mindful of. Another thing as well think of this way. If you have a bank account with, let's say, $1,000, give me modest, right? And every day you take out $5, $5, $5, $5, right? You're looking at, in a month's time, right? That's $150. In less than, let's say 10 months, you would be negative. That means your bank account would be zero. That means every time, without interest, without you putting back anything into that account, you will be in the negative or zero by the end of, let's say, 9 months or so. Think of you over time subtracting the amount of hours that you need to sleep every day and you can never quite catch up. That's the best analogy I can give you, right? So things that happen, for example, is like memory lapse, accidents, injuries. I know for me that I found if I have a pattern of not sleeping sufficiently for at least 2 weeks, I tend to drop something and it breaks. And I say, oh, my coordination's off, my cognition is not quite there. And I realize, okay, Kerry-Ann, you need to get some sleep, right? So you have to give yourself a reminder before you get to that stage, right? So that's something that I'm mindful for. And of course, I'm sure you'll be mindful of as you go, as you're sort of identifying some of the key things that have sort of impacted your sleep. The internet addiction is real. You can sit there, lie there, and you can keep scrolling, right? As you're going through. And there's the consequences that can happen over time. It will not be immediate. You won't feel the impact immediately, but over time, there are consequences. So there are treatments you can do, being mindful of, to making sure you can actually take the phone and place it another place in the house. If you use it as an alarm, you may have to put it somewhere where you can actually hear it, but it's not in your immediate space. Another thing too is to sort of compare what insomnia is versus what sleep deficiency is. So there was a study done in Harvard that sleep deficiency is basically the amount of sleep that you do not get, like the lack of sleep quality, like deep REM sleep, and the different phases of your sleep, versus insomnia, which is actually trouble falling asleep, staying asleep, or lack of quality of sleep. And so there are different types of diagnosis which can be determined which area you fall in. For example, insomnia requires 3 nights a week for 3 months just to sort of pay attention to how disruptive your sleep pattern is. So both gives you the output is low quality of sleep. And so here's a screen. I found the link actually has a write-up of how you can actually help yourself in sort of identifying the causes and what you can do to alleviate that as well. So some of the things that you can identify, the 3 signs of sleep maintenance for insomnia, is waking up multiple times throughout the night, as I mentioned before, waking up more than 2 or 3 times per night, sleeping, difficulty falling asleep after waking up, and then struggling to fall back asleep, and then waking up too early when dealing with sleep maintenance, like for example, insomnia. So you find that this is also a cycle, a vicious cycle. So this part I want to share with you is what we are so passionate about. So there are actual medications you can take to help with your sleep. So for example, your doctor may say, okay, try melatonin. But I give an example with my mother when she came back from the hospital from her second stroke she had, which left her bedridden. For 2 weeks, she couldn't sleep. And I called her doctor. And he said, well, give her melatonin, but it's only effective for 2 weeks. After 2 weeks, the body gets accustomed to it. Okay, all right. So I started giving her what I'm going to share with you, which helped her with her sleep, also helps him with my sleep and those around us that we can actually help with. Now, we were introduced to this company called Organo, so we discovered wellness through this powerful mushroom called Ganoderma. There's over 3,000 case studies or more on different conditions, but some of them also have done studies and have results that shows the improvement in quality of your life with better sleep. So we want to practice mindfulness through positivity, through wellness, and just think of this one small choice or change can actually leave a lasting impression. Or you can find that these herbs are not new to what I'm sharing with you, but they have been in the Eastern culture for thousands and thousands and thousands of years, now being sort of introduced to the Western world for the last 20 or 30 years. But there's actual studies behind this because these are considered medicinal mushrooms, but also food supplements. So there's no negative interaction with medication. It actually, in the Eastern world, like Japan, they actually recommend, as the doctors recommend, taking things like Ganoderma in addition to your medication to protect your organs, your cells, your overall well-being, as you're consuming pharmaceuticals to help you with a specific condition. So the reishi mushroom, or we call it Ganoderma, is loaded with amino acids, and it's an adaptogen. It has minerals and vitamins way beyond what you consume every day in foods, because we know foods are heavily depleted because of the soil and the lack of nutrients. So consider a superfood. that can help you with your overall well-being, like Ganoderma. We've been consuming this, my husband, my household, for well over 12 years, and we found many benefits to it. So in saying this now, we have, I'm going to share with you is some of the studies that have been found through the public medical library that can actually show you, not from my mouth, not from our company, but from studies by scientists and doctors. Cordyceps is another one, and so is lion's mane, has many health benefits. So for example, Ganoderma is actually known to help, is actually considered an anti-insomnia mushroom. It helps with the restlessness and palpitations. It actually has a mechanism for anti-insomnia, so it helps you with your sleep pattern. So this is actually the Ganoderma lucidum, which is the fruiting body of the mushroom. Ganoderma lucidum spores is actually the seed, which goes into the ear and to plum logs to create more like nature intended it to be. And it's also used to treat diseases, not just insomnia, but other conditions as well. And below is the source of PubMed.gov. And so in further studies, as you can see, you can take a screen capture, but I'm recording this as well, so you can actually, we have this will be saved for private Facebook group that you can actually go and have a look at. So for example, it promotes your gut microbiome effects. So for example, serotonin is one thing that is associated with your gut and brain health. So it promotes sleep through your gut. It also helps with your anti-fatigue. So if you feel fatigued during the day, it helps you to stay energized without the crash, like some coffees would do, and it aids in your better quality of sleep. So the second PubMed study you see here, the spores, the fruiting body, and the roots, the stems of the Ganoderma, which is called mycelium, helps with the aiding in sleeping and anti-fatigue. And also for improving with things like forgetfulness. So the spores helps with that. It also suppresses neuroinflammation. So if your body's highly inflamed from whatever conditions you're going through, if you have a specific dis-ease, you can find that you may be highly inflamed. So what it does, it helps with some of the symptoms because it's an adaptogen. It goes into your body, it gives you what you need and supports your overall well-being. So there are also studies for if you have sporadic Alzheimer's disease, sleep disorders in different forms, in addition to helping with sleep quality. So another one to here, a few more PubMed studies is great for helping with anxiety. It has a sedation type quality that helps with relaxing the body to be more calm. It helps with depression, as I mentioned before. Some sleep disorders are linked to depression, anxiety, stress. So it helps to distress the body. It helps to give you the overall well-being, not only better quality of sleep, but it helps you overall improve your body healing capacity, supports your immune system, your mental alertness once you're awake. That's why basically there it helps with anti-fatigue syndrome or symptoms, and also helps with much, much more. So here I'm sharing with you the 3 stages that I mentioned to you, the Ganoderma, the spores, as well as the mycelium. It's the one mushroom in 3 different parts. To the left, you can see in the capsules, these are in vegetable casing capsule that has the powder form that you can consume. I have a friend, she actually used the spores. That's her go-to. She cooks with it, she consumes it, she puts it in her hot beverages. And so for her, it helps with her overall well-being, including the conditions that she has. She does have a mixture of different things that she has sort of pointed out that helps her, like eliminating the things that work against her. And so this is sort of helping support her overall well-being. And so it aids in the treatment, as I mentioned, with the restlessness, which restlessness is one of the symptoms for sleep disorders or insomnia. Another one too as well is memory impairment and prolonging your life. So if you look at the systematic pattern of what it can do, consider something like this that you can add to your daily life. So if you're consuming things you know that are not quite healthy, because until you get to that stage where you can eliminate certain things consciously, consider adding this to your daily routine to help you with your overall well-being, including helping you to get to a REM state sleep versus light sleep. Cordyceps is another one I mentioned before. It has antioxidant properties, anti-inflammatory, and also helps with the treatment of neurodegenerative diseases. So it helps with your neuroprotection, your brain, you've gone through neurotrauma, and it's oxidative stress. So it has an immense health benefits overall. But one of the things we know, it helps with this memory and sleep. I'm going to go back to individuals who have, for example, menopause. There's a whole, bombardment of different conditions that you might experience over time. It could be hot flashes, it could be memory lapse, it could be brain fog, it could be many things, and they may not come all at once. But sleep is one of them that you will be lacking as you go through that cycle. So cordyceps actually helps with improving the symptoms, sleep symptoms, especially if we go through moments of depression, anxiety, if you go through, like, for example, premenopause, menopause, and other conditions that you may have been experiencing that are not related to those two types. So I mention these to you because we don't know what we don't know until we know. You as an individual are your best doctor. You get to know, learn, and grow. Lion's mane is another thing as well that's new to my world, and I love it because it has so many different great properties, but helps with your overall cognition, your mental alertness. Also, it helps with your perceived overall well-being and sleep. So here's one of the products that we have, which is the Royale. It has the 3 mushrooms in one, which is the cordyceps, lion's mane, and reishi. We know that coffee has caffeine. Naturally, there is a mix of Arabica bean and Robusta bean, which helps to reduce the caffeine level, but these actually help to negate the negative effects of caffeine. And so just to know why our products are better in a sense of quality is that ours it's grown naturally on plum logs, where there's some that are considered organic, but they're grown in plastic bags, and they are considered organic because they're free of pesticides, but they're sort of, the quality is way less than what we have, because we have that pattern that you can have all of the Ganodum, including the spores, have a 99% absorption rate into your system versus those that are not grown naturally, where it goes into your body, but only 4 to 13% absorption rate. Here's another product we have here, which is the cordyceps and the reishi infused into a caffeine-free tea. And it has overall well-being in the sense of what the properties are. For example, it has a high amount of antioxidants, theanine for dopamine to help you relax and feel calm, and it actually helps with overall well-being, including your blood pressure, blood sugar, and supporting your overall health. Here are a few of our products we have that have the Ganodum infused into them. For example, the hot cocoa is one. The king has the spores, which is, I mentioned, the seeds, which is much more important. And then you have all of these properties that you can actually have, all these products that you can actually experience the health benefits without the bitterness. So if you've ever had reishi on its own and you boil it into a tincture, it is quite bitter to taste on its own. So in your mind, in my mind, if you're consuming something bitter, how realistic is it of you to have it every single day? Not very likely. But if you can actually basically switch your blend of coffee or teas, and you actually are consuming the reishi as well as the different types of the cordyceps or the lion's mane without having the bitterness of the medicinal type properties, then it's a win-win, because if your palate likes it, you will continue to consume it. If your taste bud likes it, your taste bud will not lie. You can tell if it's bitter, if it's nice, if it's smooth, if it's gourmet, and you will continue it. So for example, on the left, the Cafe Supreme has ginseng. It has also another ingredient we call tongue-catali, but there's another technical name for it, and the mushroom. So those have 3. the mocha and the hot chocolate may gravitate to sweet beverages. So what the company has done is put more of the ganoderma into those beverages that have cane sugar to offset your, for example, your sugar level or your insulin spiking, as an example, right? So you can consume the hot cocoa and still at some point fall asleep if you decide to have it, a little shortly before you go to bed, right? Because it won't spike, it won't disturb your sleep pattern. And so as I share that with you, there are certain things that I want to bring to your attention. You have the ability to determine what you consume, but you may not have the ability to determine how your sleep cycle is because of different conditions. You may find that, for long periods of time, years, your sleep pattern is disrupted. So what I would say to you is to challenge yourself for 30 days, maybe even 90 days, and switch your brand, get back to the person who invited you, at least to consume it for 30 days consistently, and pay attention to your body and your sleep cycle to see what happens. And the reason I say that, we have a friend, we never knew this existed. It was called chronic insomnia from a baby. She's now 50 plus years old. And she would get no more than 3 hours a day from since she's a baby. Her mother had it, her grandmother had it, and she developed it. Now, what she's learned, now we share with her the red tea, and we gave her 3 sachets just to consume it. And she slept for 10 hours. The first day, 10 hours, the next, and 8 hours the next day. And she tried the teas, and then she noticed that her pattern changed. Now, was that the only thing she did over time? No. As the years go by, she changed how she ate. She even took acupuncture to help her with distressing, because she's going through some trauma as well. Because some people go through trauma and they deal with it in a negative way, in the sense of not being able to sleep, you're in a high alert, you find that your body's not at ease. So I would say to you, as I mentioned before, the different symptoms that you may identify with. If you have those symptoms, or you may know someone who's been saying, oh my gosh, I can't sleep, I'm having a hard time sleeping, I feel so drained during the day, and you can share this with them. This is a recorded call, but again, the great thing about this particular platform is that you have the ability to ask questions. So I'm going to thank you for your time, and I'm going to open up the channel so that if you have a question, you can ask, and then we can try to address it. Any questions? All right, so I hope you got good vibe information from this. And if you don't have a question, there's actually a survey that's will generate after this actual call. Please feel free to, I'm going to encourage you to fill it out. In there's one question that asks you this a specific topic you'd like us to discuss for upcoming health talks. We're more than happy to compile something together that can help you with your health journey. I want to thank you for your time. And of course, I want to give it back to you. Join us here again next Tuesday at 7 p.m. We'll be speaking on a different topic. And then also we have our business call. So there is an opportunity to generate income through this platform that we have with Organo. As we link arm with them, we're expanding within the country of Canada as well as globally. We utilize the actual products in many ways, including we do fundraising, we do like real sales. We are actually a representative of the company, so we want to invite people who would like to partner with us to generate extra income, or if you're looking as an entrepreneur. It'll be on Monday at 6 p.m. This coming Monday coming. And so if you're interested, reach out to the person, and we can actually break down the numbers as how you can get generate income by just simply switching your brand of products. All right, and this is actually a viable business that you can actually will 2 generations down. Which most people who have a job, you cannot do that. So this is something that we actually were able to learn about and to be able to understand as we built our business from being a customer to a business partner. Have a great day and take care, everyone.